Every day she fed him. Not because she had plenty, but because she understood what it meant to be hungry. Along the busy roadside in Enugu, Hannah, 19 years old, stood behind a small wooden table filled with trays of food. Smoke rose gently from the pot beside her. The smell of fried plantain and akara filled the air. Buses and motorcycles sped past, people shouted, horns blared, but Hannah stayed focused. She wiped her face with the back of her hand and adjusted her apron. Her stall was simple. A faded umbrella, 2 old benches for customers and 1 plastic table, nothing special. Every day he sat nearby, an old man, dirty, hair scattered, shirt torn, 1 slipper missing. He sat on a broken concrete bench under the mango tree, not far from her stall. Hannah wasn't sure when he first appeared. Maybe 3 months ago? 4? She couldn't say. But he had been around for a while now. Most people hardly noticed him. Some crossed the road when they saw him. Others laughed behind his back. They called him Crazy Mark. Sometimes he talked to himself. Sometimes he laughed at nothing. Other times, he just stared into space. Many people warned her. "Don't go near that man," someone said. "He's not safe." But Hannah didn't see a dangerous man. She saw a hungry man. So when she had rice or akara, she packed some into a small nylon bag and took it to him. She didn't expect thanks. She didn't talk too much. She just gave. That afternoon, while turning yam on the fire, she looked toward the bench. He was there again. His clothes looked the same as yesterday. His face was thin. His lips were dry. His eyes were fixed on her stall. She looked away. From the next stall, Maman and Nena, a soft-spoken woman who sold akara and pap, leaned closer and whispered, "That man's been around for some months now. I heard he lost his mind in a fire. No one knows exactly what happened and how he got here." Hannah said nothing. She scooped some rice into a small plate and added 2 pieces of meat. It was food she could have sold, but she didn't think twice. She placed the food inside a nylon bag and walked slowly toward the bench. The man turned his head slowly. Their eyes met. He looked confused but calm. Hannah bent down, placed the food beside him on the bench, and turned to leave. "Thank you," he said softly. Hannah paused. It was the first time she had heard his voice. Clear, not broken. She turned to look at him again, but he was already eating. Hannah turned back one last time. Mark was eating slowly, carefully, as if the food was the only thing holding him together. His voice still echoed in her mind. "Thank you." It didn't sound like a madman at all. It sounded tired, human, like someone who had seen too much and spoken too little. She stood there for a few seconds, watching him, wondering. Maybe he was getting better, she thought. Maybe he was never really crazy, just broken. She shook the thought away and returned to her stall. She had too much to do. Rent was due soon. Food prices had gone up again. Her mother's medicine was almost finished, and she still hadn't eaten anything that day. As the sun dropped lower, she packed up her stall. She tied the umbrella shut, washed the trays, and counted the few notes she had made that day. It wasn't much. It never really was. But she set a portion aside for Mark. Tomorrow he would need to eat again. The room smelled of dust and damp cloth. She opened the door gently and stepped inside. "Mummy, it's me," she said softly. Her mother, Linda, was lying on the mattress in the corner, covered with a thin wrapper. Her eyes fluttered open. "You're back," Linda whispered, trying to sit up. "Don't move," Hannah said quickly. "I brought dinner." She placed the food on a stool and helped her mother sit. Linda's hands were trembling again. Hannah held the spoon, feeding her one bite at a time. "Did you sell anything today?" Linda asked in a weak voice. Hannah forced a small smile. "A little. Enough." She didn't mention the rent, or the rising prices, or the fact that she had taken only puff and water all day. It didn't matter. Her mother came first. Later that night, while Linda slept, Hannah sat near the window hugging her knees. Her eyes were heavy, but her mind wouldn't rest. She thought about her dream. She had always wanted to be a nurse, even got accepted into a nursing school 2 years ago, but the day after the letter arrived, her mother fell sick, and everything changed. School was dropped, books were sold, dreams were folded and packed away. She had no memory of her father. Her mother said he died in an accident when she was still a baby. She never asked too many questions. All she had was her mother. That was enough. Still, sometimes, like now, she wondered what life might have been like if things had gone differently. Her eyes drifted to her purse. She took out a small brown envelope and opened it. Inside were 3 pieces of paper, a pharmacy slip, a list of drugs she couldn't afford, and a note she had scribbled to herself. One day I will wear white, and I will help people get better. She tucked the papers back into the envelope and returned it to her bag. From the other side of the room, Linda stirred. "You look just like her," she mumbled, half asleep. Hannah frowned. "Who?" she asked. But Linda had already turned away, drifting back into sleep. The next morning, as usual, Hannah went to the stall. She prepared food, swept the ground, set up the umbrella, and arranged the bench. Around 11 a.m., Mark arrived. He sat on the same bench, didn't say a word. Just sat. She brought him a fresh plate of rice, not leftovers, and placed it beside him. He didn't thank her this time, but when she turned to walk away, she noticed something. His left hand, resting on his knee, wore a faded but expensive-looking ring. It didn't match the rest of him. It was the kind of ring only wealthy men wore, not a scratch on it. And he never took it off. She looked back once more. Mark wasn't eating yet. He was staring at the road. In his lap was a torn piece of cardboard. He was scribbling something on it with charcoal. The next day, she brought him food again, just like always. Hannah walked up to the bench, placed the warm nylon pack beside him, and turned to go. Mark didn't say thank you. He didn't look at her. He was back to staring at nothing. But she kept doing it anyway. Every day, rain or sun, plenty or little. She always kept a portion for him, not leftovers, real food. Despite all the warnings from people around her, she couldn't ignore him. There was something about him, quiet, distant, but not aggressive, not like someone to fear. He didn't beg. He didn't threaten. He just watched the world like he was remembering something it had forgotten. Sometimes, he scribbled strange symbols or broken sentences on pieces of old cardboard. She never asked what they meant. Then one morning everything shifted. She had just handed him his food and was walking back to her stall when she heard his voice behind her. Clear, sharp, almost normal. "Hannah," he said. She stopped. Her heart jumped. He had never said her name before. She turned slowly. "What?" Mark looked straight at her. His voice didn't shake. "Hannah, Linda's daughter. But Linda is not your mother." Hannah blinked. Her breath caught in her throat. "What did you just say?" But his face was blank again. His eyes shifted. He looked past her, mumbling now. About smoke, about names, about nothing at all. She stared at him for a long time, trying to make sense of what she had just heard. How does he know my mother's name? And what nonsense is that about Linda not being my mother? That's crazy talk. It has to be. She shook her head and forced a short laugh. "No, you're just rambling," she said aloud to herself. He's not sane. Just one of those days. Still, the way he had said her name stuck in her head for the rest of the day. The next morning, she greeted him like nothing happened. He didn't respond. He just sat there as usual, scribbling on a torn piece of cardboard. The day after that, same thing. Blank stares, soft muttering. She began to believe she had imagined it. But 3 days later, while wiping her bench and preparing pap, she heard him speak again, just as clear as before. "Hannah, Linda is not your mother." This time she dropped the cup she was holding. It spilled all over the table. She walked straight to him, heart pounding. "What did you say? Why are you saying that? Do you know me?" Mark looked at her. Then something flickered in his eyes. "Ask her," he said. "Ask your mother, she knows." Then, just like before, his eyes drifted away. He began mumbling again, laughing at nothing, scratching his knee with a spoon. She backed away, confused. Was it a coincidence? Was he guessing? Or was there truth buried in his madness? That evening, as she packed up her stall, she didn't smile at customers. She didn't wave goodbye. Her mind was heavy. The sky was already growing dark when she reached that door to their small room. She pushed it open gently. Linda was lying on her side, breathing slowly. "Mummy," Hannah said, placing her bag down. Linda turned her head, her voice weak but warm. "You're back." Hannah nodded and sat beside her. She stared at her mother's face for a long moment. Linda looked tired, old, like she had been carrying something for too long. There was a pause. Then Hannah asked quietly, "Do you know the man that sits near my stall? The one people call Mark?" Linda's body froze. Her eyes didn't blink. Her hands trembled. Hannah continued, "He said something strange to me today. Something about you not being my real mother." Linda slowly turned her head to look at her. Her face was pale, almost grey. Her voice came out sharp, full of fear. "Never go close to that man's name again. He is crazy." That night, Hannah couldn't sleep. She lay on the thin mattress beside her mother, staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft hum of a nearby generator. Outside, the occasional sound of footsteps or a passing motorcycle drifted in through the cracked window. But all she could think about was what her mother said. "Never go close to that man's name again. He is crazy." The way Linda's face had changed. The fear, the sharpness in her voice. It wasn't like her at all. Her mother had always been soft-spoken, gentle, even when sick. But now it was like something was haunting her. What is she hiding? Hannah wondered. She turned her head and looked at Linda, who had drifted into a light sleep. Her breathing was uneven, her face pale. Her skin was getting thinner these days, her arms weaker. Linda had been fighting the same illness for over 2 years. Some days were better than others. But on the bad days, even standing up to brush her teeth left her shaking. The next morning, as Hannah was tying her apron, preparing to head out to the stall, Linda called out from the bed. Her voice was low but firm. "Hannah, please, stay away from that madman." Hannah paused, surprised. She turned slowly. Linda's eyes were sharp, worried, almost pleading. "I mean it. Don't talk to him. Don't go near him. Nothing good comes from that man." "But," Hannah started. "No," Linda cut in. "Promise me." Hannah nodded slowly, though her mind was racing. Why this much fear? She stepped out quietly, walked to her stall, and tried to focus on her usual routine. Setting the table, heating the oil, arranging the trays. But her thoughts wouldn't settle. Her mother, who always taught her to be kind to everyone, was now afraid of a homeless man who barely spoke. Why? That night, as she returned from her stall, her slippers dragging through the quiet street, Hannah paused at their door. She could hear soft crying from inside. She stood still. Then, through the thin wall, she heard Linda whispering through her tears. She wasn't supposed to know. Not like this. Hannah's eyes widened. Her heart skipped. She didn't go inside right away. She just stood there in the dark, thinking. The next evening, after closing the stall, Hannah did something different. She waited. Pretending to clean up, she watched Mark from the corner of her eye as he stood from his bench and slowly walked down the street. Hannah followed from a distance, careful not to make noise or be seen. He didn't go far. Just a few blocks away, behind an old cement fence covered in peeling paint, he slipped through a narrow space beside a tree and disappeared behind an abandoned building. Hannah crept closer, hiding behind a corner. She peeked through a hole in the wall. What she saw made her freeze. Mark wasn't mumbling. He wasn't rocking or scratching his head. He was kneeling beside a worn mat, arranging small folded papers and checking the ground like someone who had been trained to survive. He scanned his surroundings. Not like a madman. Like a man who had been watching, waiting, and hiding. Hannah's breath caught in her chest. Who is he really? She backed away slowly and hurried home, her mind spinning. As she approached her street, the sky already deep with stars, she noticed something else. A black SUV was parked at the corner, lights off, engine quiet. It pulled away slowly as she approached, disappearing into the night. But not before she saw it. The window was slightly down, and someone inside was watching. The next morning, Hannah did not go to her stall. The sun had barely risen when she slipped out quietly, careful not to wake her mother. Her heart was beating fast. The image of Mark from the night before would not leave her mind. The way he checked his surroundings. The way he hid. That was not madness. That was fear. She walked quickly, keeping her head down until she reached the abandoned building behind the old cement fence. The place was quiet. Too quiet. "Hannah!" A weak voice called. She froze. Then she saw him. Mark was on the ground. Blood stained the side of his head. One of his arms was shaking. His shirt was torn even worse than before. "Oh my God," Hannah whispered and rushed to him. "What happened?" she asked, kneeling beside him. He struggled to sit up. His eyes were clear, fully clear. "They found me," he whispered. "Two men, rough men. They did not talk much." Hannah's chest tightened. "Who found you?" But Mark shook his head like the strength was leaving him. "They will come again," he said softly. "They will come for you too." Her hands began to shake. "What are you saying? Who will come for me? I don't even know you." Mark looked at her face closely, too closely. His madness was gone. "You are not supposed to be seen," he said. "Not now." Hannah swallowed hard. Fear crawled up her spine. She helped him up slowly, supporting his weight with her shoulder. He was heavier than he looked, stronger too. She took him behind her stall, into the small storage space she used to keep firewood and empty bowls. She cleaned his wound with water and cloth, pressing gently as he winced but did not scream. "Stay here," she said. "Please." He nodded. As she turned to leave, his hand shot out. He grabbed her wrist. His grip was firm. His voice was clear, steady, not mad at all. "If Raymond sees you," he said, "you will be in danger." Hannah's heart slammed against her chest. "Who is Raymond?" she asked. But Mark's eyes had already changed. The clarity faded. His grip loosened. He began to mumble again. Hannah stood there, frozen. Raymond. The name echoed in her head. She did not know what it meant, but she knew one thing. Nothing about her life was simple anymore. 3 days passed. Hannah hadn't slept properly since. Each morning she opened her stall as usual. She smiled at customers. She served hot akara and yolof, but behind that smile was fear. Every few hours she slipped behind the shop to check on Mark. She had cleaned his wounds with warm water and salt, torn part of her old wrapper to wrap around the bleeding. He barely spoke, only muttered now and then through a fever. But what he had said before passing out still haunted her. "They found me. They will come for you too." She didn't understand it. Who was they? Why would she be in danger? It was just after 9 a.m. The day had barely begun. Hannah was frying yam, wiping her hands on her apron when she heard engines. Not one, not two. 4 black SUVs pulled up beside her tiny stall, just inches from her table. Everything went quiet. Customers moved back. Street hawkers paused. The air changed. The doors opened. 6 men stepped out, all of them in black suits, clean shoes, dark glasses. They didn't shout. They didn't smile either. Their leader, a tall man with a cold face, stepped forward. "Good morning," he said, his voice calm but sharp. "We're looking for someone." Hannah's mouth went dry. She forced a nod. "Who?" "A homeless man. People call him Crazy Mark." She swallowed. "I don't know him," she said quickly. The man looked around. His eyes scanned the area. He stepped closer. "If you are hiding him," he said softly, "you are helping a criminal." The words weren't loud, but they cut deep. He gave her a long look, then gave a small nod, and the men returned to the SUVs. The engine started again. One by one, the black vehicles pulled away from the roadside and disappeared into the traffic. Hannah's knees felt weak. She leaned against her table, breathing slowly. People returned to their business, but her heart was still racing. She bent to pick up a dropped spoon, and that's when she saw it. On the side of the last SUV, just below the tinted window, was a silver symbol. Not big, not loud, but clear enough for her to read. Ademoye Group. Her eyes widened. She had heard that name before. Not in books. Not on the news, but whispered. By her mother. One night. In her sleep. Now Hannah's chest was tight with questions. Why is a powerful company looking for a homeless man? Why did they threaten her? And how is her sick mother and her quiet little life connected to any of this? Nothing made sense anymore. 3 days later, the questions still burned inside Hannah. The black SUVs did not return, but the fear stayed. It followed Hannah everywhere, into her stall, into her sleep, into every quiet moment. One thing was clear now. Nothing around her life was normal anymore. Her mother had said nothing more. The house was quiet. Linda barely spoke unless it was about food or medicine. She avoided eye contact, always looking tired, distracted. But Hannah couldn't let it go. It didn't feel like nothing anymore. So that evening, as Linda sat propped against her pillow, sipping water, Hannah finally asked, "Mummy, what is Ademoye Group? Why are they looking for Mark?" The cup slipped from Linda's hand. Water spilled across the floor. She tried to sit up too quickly, and her body gave out. Her head tilted sideways, her eyes rolled back. "Mummy!" Hannah caught her before she fell. Her mother's skin felt cold, her lips trembled. She lay her down gently and fanned her with the corner of the bedsheet, panic rising in her throat. Minutes passed before Linda opened her eyes again. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet, shaky. "There are names I prayed you'd never hear." Then she turned her face to the wall and said nothing more. That night, after making sure Linda was resting, Hannah stepped out with a torch in hand. She returned to the little shade behind her stall, where Mark had been hiding the past few days. He was awake but not fully present, murmuring, eyes glazed. She squatted beside him. "Mark," she said gently, "please, who are you? Why are they after you? What do you know about my mother?" He kept mumbling. "Fire. The baby. She didn't burn. The baby. They lied." Hannah's eyes watered in frustration. "Please, just tell me the truth," she whispered. But Mark had already drifted again. He curled up on the mat, his fingers twitching like he was fighting ghosts. Hours later, after putting her mother to bed, Hannah couldn't sleep. Her heart was heavy, her thoughts restless. Something told her she wouldn't find peace until she knew the full truth. She reached for the old photo album she kept under the bed, hoping maybe there was something, anything that could help. But as she pulled it out, her hand brushed something harder. Tucked far behind the mattress board, a blue box. Small, worn, covered in dust. She had never seen it before. Slowly she opened it. Inside were only a few items, but each one hit her like thunder. An old ID card with a faded photo of Linda, dressed in the uniform of a luxury estate housekeeper. A torn newspaper clipping with the headline, "Billionaire Maxwell Ademoye missing after explosion." Another piece of paper, burnt along the edges, barely readable. "Founders of Ademoye Group trapped in fire. Family of 3 burnt beyond recognition." A very black Thursday in the city. Her hands shook. She stared at the newspaper, then back at the ID. Then she looked at the photo of Linda in her uniform, standing beside a fountain. And then she remembered Mark's face. The way he walked, the way he watched everything, the look in his eyes when he was clear. She held up the article again, this time paying attention to the small portrait beside the headline. Her heart stopped. It was blurry, but it was him. Crazy Mark might be Maxwell Ademoye. Hannah didn't sleep. She just sat there, on the cold floor of the living room, the open blue box in front of her like a portal to a life she didn't know she had lived. At dawn, she walked into her mother's room. Linda was awake, eyes open, as if she knew what was coming. Hannah stood at the door, trembling. I saw everything. Linda blinked. The photo, the headlines, the uniform, the name Maxwell Ademoye. A long silence. Mummy? Hannah's voice cracked. Who am I? Linda's face broke. Tears began to fall before the words even formed. Please, don't ask me that. I'm not leaving this room until you tell me everything, Hannah whispered. Every single thing. Linda looked away. Her shoulders rose and fell. Then Hannah opened the box in front of her. She placed the contents on the bed one by one, slowly. When Linda saw the headline, her hand flew to her mouth. You weren't supposed to know. But I do now. A long silence passed between them, the kind that changes everything. Linda finally spoke. You're not my daughter. Hannah froze. What? I mean you are, because I raised you, but I didn't give birth to you. Flashback, 19 years ago. Rain, flames, screams. The Ademoye mansion was a blazing inferno under a stormy sky. The glass walls shattered inward from the pressure. Orange light danced across the gardens. Inside, a woman screamed. Maxwell Ademoye, barely 35, staggered through the smoke-covered hallway, blood running down the side of his face. His left leg was dragging. Linda! He yelled hoarsely. Linda, take the baby! A trembling housekeeper in a soot-covered uniform came running up the servant stairwell. Her name was Linda Iber. She'd been working with the family for 5 years. Maxwell held a small bundle in his hands, a crying baby girl wrapped in a silk cloth. Firelight reflected in his glassy eyes. They planned it, he gasped. My brother, Raymond. He said the company should be his. He said my family was in the way. What are you saying? Linda cried, coughing from the smoke. Please, Maxwell whispered, handing her the child. Take baby Shola. Save her, don't look back, don't trust anyone, take her far from here. What about you? I'll buy you time. Before Linda could argue, the hallway behind them exploded in sparks. Maxwell shoved her toward the back gate. She ran, through the chaos, through the fire, through the storm, back to present. Linda's voice trembled as she spoke. I ran all the way to Abuta. I knew someone there, a nurse. She helped hide us. Weeks later, I heard on the radio that Maxwell had died. A car accident, burned beyond recognition. Hannah covered her mouth. And Raymond? Raymond held a press conference, cried like a baby, claimed the family was wiped out. He said Maxwell, his wife, and their baby all died in the fire. He inherited everything, the company, the houses, the shares. Nobody questioned him. He made sure nobody found your body, because he believed it burned. But it didn't, Hannah whispered, because of you. Linda broke down in tears. I raised you as my own, Shola. I renamed you Hannah. I changed our address, moved every few years. I tried to give you a normal life. I just wanted you safe. That's all I ever wanted. Hannah sat down. Her legs couldn't hold her anymore. She was silent. Then she asked the question that scared Linda the most. So if Mark is Maxwell, why is he hiding? Why does he act like he's mad? Linda didn't have an answer, but something in her eyes said she suspected more than she was ready to admit. Hannah didn't wait. She didn't speak another word to Linda. She just ran. Out of the house. Through the narrow alleys of their compound. Past Mum and Ketchi's sewing table. Past the children fetching water. The sun was still low in the sky, but the world felt different. Like it was spinning faster. Her heart was pounding. Her chest ached. She didn't even realize she was crying. Everything she knew, everything she believed, was gone. Her mother wasn't her mother. Her name wasn't her name. And the madman wasn't mad at all. She reached the mechanic shop. The space behind the metal container was quiet, but she saw him, sitting cross-legged in the dust, mumbling, holding a piece of mango like it was a gold bar. Hannah didn't hesitate. Maxwell. The name slipped from her lips like a whisper, but it hit him like thunder. He looked up. Frozen. Hannah stepped closer and held out the newspaper article she had found in the blue box. I know who you are. His hands trembled as he reached for the paper. The moment his eyes landed on the old photo, his own younger face beside Edward Ademoye, his older brother, something cracked. Maxwell staggered backward, clutching his head. Memories, sounds, screams, fire. He let out a strangled cry and fell to his knees, sobbing. I tried to save them. I couldn't. Hannah stood there, eyes wide, as the man who used to dance in rain puddles and dig through trash spoke in clear, broken words. I'm Maxwell Ademoye, second son of the Ademoye family. Your father, Edward, was the CEO of the group. He looked up at her, eyes full of guilt and unspeakable pain. Raymond, he hated your father, said he was the golden child. He wanted everything, the company, the power. He arranged the explosion, wanted the entire first bloodline gone. Maxwell's voice broke. I couldn't save your parents. The fire was too fast. But I found you in your crib, still breathing. I took you out. I ran. I gave you to Linda. I told her to go far, and she did. He clutched his head. I was supposed to come back for you. But Raymond, he found out I survived. He tampered with my brakes. I had a car crash. The news said I died, but I didn't. My mind broke. I forgot everything. Tears ran down Hannah's cheeks. Then how did you find me again? Maxwell gave a small smile, full of sadness. 6 months ago. Flashes started coming back. Your face. The resemblance, even though I wasn't in my right sense. Something kept drawing me to you, this place. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I knew I had to be here. I had to watch, protect, even if I didn't know why. Silence. Then he whispered, Now I remember. Everything. He suddenly grew still. His eyes darted toward the street behind Hannah's stall. A black car had just rolled past, stopped, reversed. A man in a black tailored suit stepped out. Tall, clean-cut, expensive shoes, cold eyes. He wasn't buying anything. He was watching. Maxwell grabbed Hannah's arm. His voice dropped low. That's one of Raymond's men. Hannah's breath caught. Are you sure? Maxwell nodded. The madness in his eyes was gone now. Only urgency remained. I think Raymond already found out I'm alive, but he doesn't know you exist. Not yet. We have to keep it that way. What do we do? Maxwell glanced behind the stall. We run. Now. Hannah didn't hesitate. She took his hand. Together, they slipped behind a container, weaving through the back streets away from the man in the suit. He turned just as they vanished. Hannah slammed the door shut behind them, locking it twice. She and Maxwell leaned against the wall, panting. Neither spoke at first. The fear hadn't fully left their eyes. Maxwell looked around the tiny living room, modest, worn, but filled with warmth. His gaze landed on Linda, who had risen from the couch the moment they burst in. Their eyes locked. She froze. So did he. Then, without a word, Maxwell dropped to his knees. Tears rolled down his face. You saved her, he whispered. You didn't leave her. You didn't let her die. Linda's lips trembled. She dropped to her knees, covering her face with her hands. I couldn't, she sobbed. She was just a baby. I didn't even think. I just ran. Maxwell reached out and took her hand. I should have come sooner. I should have found you both. But I wasn't pretending to be mad. I wasn't okay. He looked toward Hannah, his voice growing steadier. There were days I didn't even know my own name. But every time she brought me food, water, every act of kindness brought me back, little by little. Linda let out a broken sound. I thought you were dead. So did I. They sat in silence for a beat. Then Maxwell's tone darkened. Raymond's men are closing in. They saw me. They're following us. This place is no longer safe. Linda stood, wiping her face. Then what do we do? First, we leave this place. Later that night, they arrived at the edge of an industrial area, surrounded by overgrown weeds and rusted signage. Maxwell pushed open the door to a large abandoned warehouse. "My brother never knew about this place," he said. "Edward built it 3 years before he was killed. It was supposed to be a private archive for family documents." Inside, the space was dusty but intact. Steel shelves lined the walls, files, locked drawers, crates. Maxwell went straight to a corner, kneeled, lifted a false floorboard, pulled out a metal box. Inside, an old flash drive, bundled paper documents wrapped in plastic, and a faded envelope sealed with wax. "These," he said, holding them up, "are everything. Proof of Raymond's betrayal, his embezzlement deals, fraudulent acts, signed transactions, altered documents, testimonies from the inside, all collected in secret. Raymond found out I had evidence against him. That was why he wanted to kill me too." Hannah's eyes widened. "Then we take this to the police." Maxwell shook his head. "No, that's the mistake I made before." He looked at her firmly. "Raymond is well connected, the kind of man who pays people to look the other way. The police? He owns too many of them. All we have is truth. But in this world, money is the real power." Hannah felt her stomach twist. "So what do we do then?" Maxwell hesitated. "There's one person who might help. An old classmate of mine, a lawyer. Back in the day, he was the only one who stood up to Raymond in school and lived to tell the tale. His name is Barrister Ayodele. Meanwhile, at the Adamoya estate, Raymond stood at the center of his office, glass walls behind him overlooking the city. The sun was setting, but his face was stormy. One of his men stood trembling before him, blood on his lip from where he'd been punched earlier. "You lost him." "He ran, sir. He's a mad man. And you, all of you, couldn't catch a man who eats out of the gutter." Smack! Raymond's palm landed on the man's face hard. Another stood by the door, avoiding eye contact. "If Maxwell is alive," Raymond growled, "he's going to expose everything. And if that girl, that stall girl, has anything to do with him." His eyes darkened. "Find them. Burn everything if you have to. I want Maxwell's body." The next morning, the soft rays of morning sunlight filtered through broken slats in the warehouse walls. Hannah stirred on the small mattress they had spread out in the corner, her eyes adjusting to the light. She glanced across the room and nearly didn't recognize the man standing by the water drum. Maxwell. He had shaved the messy beard, trimmed his hair with an old blade Linda found, and scrubbed himself clean. The scars on his face were clearer now, a roadmap of pain, but he stood tall, his shirt tucked in, his back straight. No longer a madman, but a man with purpose. "Wow," Hannah said, rising. "You clean up really well." Maxwell chuckled, brushing the collar of his shirt. "Thanks to both of you. For the water, the food, and the years of care I didn't even know I was getting." Linda stepped into the room with a steaming cup of tea. Her eyes welled up as she looked at him. "You look just like your brother," she said softly. Maxwell blinked. He was the one who built this warehouse. Maybe part of him knew we'd need it one day. By late morning, Maxwell was seated with a phone clutched in his hand, pacing nervously. He dialed. The line rang. Once. Twice. Then clicked. "Hello?" came a measured, cautious voice. "Ayo, it's me, Maxwell Adamoy." A pause. "Is this some kind of joke?" "It's not. I know it's been years, and I know I vanished. But I need your help. It's about my brother. About Shola." There was another long silence. Then the voice changed, calmer but guarded. "Where are you?" By mid-afternoon, they met Barrister Ayodele in a quiet corner of a library at his private chambers. The man was sharply dressed, older now but alert. His eyes flicked from Maxwell to Hannah to Linda, then back again. "You're telling me she's Shola?" he asked. "Yes," Maxwell replied. "She's the baby, the real heir." Ayodele leaned back, thoughtful. "This is explosive. But we need more than testimony and burnt memories. We need something no court can argue with." He turned to Hannah. "We need a DNA test. If you truly are Edward Adamoya's daughter, the test will prove it. and that with the documents Maxwell preserved will be our weapon. Within the next 24 hours, the lawyer arranged for a private lab to conduct the DNA test, using samples from Edward's old medical records and preserved family documents. Hannah sat still as the technician swabbed the inside of her cheek. It felt surreal, as if she was being asked to prove her very existence. 2 days later, the results came in. 99.98% match. The room went still. Maxwell hugged her first, whispering, "I told you." Linda cried silently. Iredell smiled for the first time. "You're Shola Ademoye," he said, "daughter of Edward and Abimbola Ademoye, legal heir to a fortune and the key to bringing Raymond down." They began to plan, quietly, carefully. That night, Hannah decided to check on her food stand, the one place that had given her some income, some dignity. She turned the corner into the open street near the market and stopped. Her stand was gone, the tables smashed, the pots scattered across the road, her jollof pot crushed, the rice and stew soaked into the dirt. A single note sat on the shattered bench. "You were warned. Stop hiding the madman." Hannah stood frozen, fists clenched, her face pale but burning with fury. Maxwell stepped beside her and picked up the note. "He's sending a message," he said. "Then we'll send one back," Hannah replied, her voice cold and steady. "And it'll be the last one he gets." Morning came with no peace. Hannah barely slept. The image of her broken food stand kept flashing in her mind. The pots on the ground, the food wasted, the note. When they gathered inside the warehouse, she told them everything. "They destroyed my stall," she said quietly. "Everything. It was a warning." Maxwell's face hardened. Barrister Ayodele went silent for a long moment. Then he exhaled slowly. "This is moving faster than I expected," he said. "If Raymond already knows you are helping Maxwell, then it's only a matter of time before he starts connecting the dots." Linda's hands trembled. "So what do we do now?" Hannah asked. Iredell looked at them, serious. "We stop hiding." They all turned to him. "Quiet justice won't work with a man like Raymond," he continued. "He is too powerful, too connected. If we go quietly, he will bury this case. We need to expose him publicly." Maxwell nodded slowly. "The documents, the DNA results, the flash drive," he said. "All of it." "Yes," Ayodele replied. "We prepare a controlled release. Media houses, financial regulators, the board, all at once. We hit him where he can't silence everyone." Hannah's heart beat faster. This was no longer just about survival. This was war. They worked through the day, scanning documents, organizing files, backing up evidence, printing copies, securing cloud storage. Hannah watched Maxwell closely. He looked focused, strong, nothing like the man who once sat on a bench talking to himself. "This is my brother," he said quietly at one point. "But what he did destroyed too many lives." Hannah nodded. "And he won't destroy any more." That evening, Maxwell stepped outside the warehouse to make a call. "I'll be right back," he said. "I need better network." Minutes passed, then 10, then 15. Hannah felt something tighten in her chest. She stood up. "Maxwell!" she called. No answer. She walked toward the entrance. The warehouse door was open, too open. Outside the road was empty. No footsteps, no voices, just silence. Then she saw it. Maxwell's phone. On the ground. The screen cracked, still unlocked. Hannah's breath stopped. Barrister Ayodele rushed out behind her. He looked around once. His face went pale. "They took him," he said quietly. Linda screamed. Hannah stood frozen, staring at the phone in her hand. Raymond had made his move. And this time, he didn't miss. Meanwhile, across town, the room was silent except for the sound of slow dripping water and the metallic clink of chains. Maxwell groaned as his eyes fluttered open. The air was damp, his head pounded, his arms were bound tightly to the arms of an old rusted chair, legs tied to its legs. A single naked bulb swung above him, flickering. Then the door creaked open. and in stepped Raymond Adamoya. Clean cut, dressed in a black designer suit, a smirk curling on his face like a scar. "Well, well," he said, stepping into the light. "Look who decided to rise from the dead." Maxwell struggled but couldn't move much. "Raymond." "I should have let you burn completely that night," Raymond said, crouching beside him. "But even the fire wasn't enough to erase you, was it?" Maxwell's jaw tightened. "You killed them. You destroyed our family." Raymond's smile faded. "Don't rewrite history, brother. You were always the sentimental fool. Edward wanted you to take over, not me. You were always the favorite. But now," he stood up, "now I have the company, the power, the image. And you?" He leaned close, voice icy. "You're just a madman with a secret." Maxwell spat near his shoe. "You'll lose everything." Raymond's voice dropped lower. "Not if you disappear again. For good. I'll make this simple, Max. Leave quietly, or that girl, Hannah, the poor food seller, dies." Maxwell's entire body stilled. His face went pale. Raymond smiled, satisfied. "You'll move, brother." Back at the warehouse, Hannah paced beside her phone while Mr. Ayadel sat at the desk, looking over the last bits of evidence. Her hands trembled, but her jaw was set. "He has Maxwell," she said. "I know it." Ayadel nodded slowly. "Then we push back harder." Together they crafted a second post. "Maxwell Adamoya may be alive. Evidence inside. #Adamoya scandal, #blood and power." Within hours, the forums were ablaze. Anonymous accounts speculated wildly. News blogs started picking it up. Then, Hannah's phone buzzed. Private number, calling. She swallowed and picked up. "Hannah," came Raymond's voice, smooth and oily. "So lovely to finally connect." Her eyes narrowed. "You're afraid, aren't you?" "I'm offering you a way out," he said. "You want your little lunatic alive? Come alone. No cops, no lawyer, no games." He hung up. That same evening, Hannah returned to check on Linda, only to find her slumped beside her mattress, clutching her chest. "Mama!" she cried out, dropping to her knees. Linda was feverish, barely conscious. Ayadel came in, alarmed. "She needs real care now." "We can't afford a hospital," Hannah shouted. "You can," he said quietly, "if you claim your birthright." Hannah looked at her mother's face, glistening with sweat. "Then it's time." The next morning, Hannah released a short video online, using a disguised voice and digital blur. "If anything happens to Maxwell Kingsley or to me, the full evidence goes public. DNA, records, proof. Raymond Adamoye will fall." It spread like wildfire. But before she could breathe, her phone rang again. "No caller ID." She picked up, a distorted voice. "Come alone. If you want the madman alive, I won't offer this again." Hannah's breath caught in her throat. Later that day, the sky was bruised with dark clouds as Hannah made her way down the deserted road that led to an abandoned warehouse on the city's outskirts. Her heart hammered in her chest. The air felt heavy, like it knew something wicked was about to happen. She stepped through the creaking metal door cautiously, phone tucked into her back pocket, silently recording. A dim light flickered in the far corner. There, tied to a chair with ropes cutting into his wrists and blood streaking down his temple, was Maxwell. "Uncle Max," she gasped, running toward him, but stopped cold at the sound of slow, deliberate footsteps. Raymond emerged from the shadows, dressed in black, sunglasses perched coolly on his face, and a gun loosely gripped in one hand. He clapped mockingly. "Well done," he said. "You actually came. Alone." Hannah stared him down. "Let him go." Raymond smirked. "You're bold, and I'll give you that." He stepped closer, eyes gleaming. "Here's the deal. Give me any evidence he has and walk away, right now, and you'll be well compensated." He pulled out a sleek black envelope and tossed it to the ground at her feet. 20 million. Instant transfer, no questions, no noise, no justice. Hannah didn't even glance at it. "You still don't know who I am, do you?" she asked softly. Raymond frowned. "You're just some stupid girl with a bleeding heart." That's when Hannah realized he had no idea. He didn't know she was Shola Adamoya, and that gave her power. She straightened. "You're afraid?" Raymond laughed bitterly. "Afraid, my dear girl. I've survived worse than you." He walked over to Maxwell and grabbed a handful of his shirt, shaking him roughly. "You want to know how your precious Maxwell ended up like this?" he sneered. "I made it happen." He turned to Hannah, his voice dropping to a deadly calm. "I killed Edward, his wife, their child." He took a step closer, eyes narrowing. "You think I won't kill you too? I burned a baby alive for power. Poor people die every day, don't test me." Hannah's breath caught in her throat, her blood freezing at the confession. Maxwell stirred, his eyes fluttering open. "Run! Hannah!" But she didn't move. Raymond turned to his men, two broad-shouldered guards in leather jackets with weapons drawn. He waved one hand carelessly. "Finish them," and turned to leave. Just as Raymond's men raised their guns, a loud voice thundered from the entrance. "Drop your weapons!" Flashlights flooded the warehouse as police officers in black vests stormed in behind Mr. Ayodele, his voice firm, his presence unshaken. Raymond spun around, his face paling for the first time. "You," he muttered. Mr. Ayodele didn't flinch. "Yes, me. You think you're untouchable, Raymond. Not today." What followed was chaos. Shouting. Gun clicks. Raymond's men tried to fight, but they were no match for the trained officers. One was disarmed immediately. The other tried to escape through a side door but was tackled to the ground. In the middle of it all, Hannah rushed to Maxwell, untying him with trembling hands. He was weak, barely able to sit upright. "You're safe now," she whispered, her voice breaking. Mr. Ayodele made his way toward them. "We have to go. This isn't over." Behind them, Raymond tried to run, but the police cornered him quickly. "You'll regret this," he barked at Hannah. She turned slowly to face him, eyes calm, steady. "You already regret it," she said. Outside, under the flashing lights of police cars and news vans gathering nearby, Mr. Ayodele pulled her aside. "I sent everything," he said. "The evidence, every document, every transaction, every testimony. All of it is already with multiple media houses. Even if they try to silence one, 10 more are ready." Hannah nodded, her heart still pounding. "I also recorded him." Mr. Ayodele blinked. "You what?" She pulled her phone from her pocket and hit play. Raymond's voice came out clear and cold. "I killed Edward, his wife, their child. You think I won't kill you too?" Ayodele stared at her, stunned. "You brilliant girl." Just then, a nearby reporter gasped, eyes locked on her tablet. "Turn on the news," she shouted. All around them, phones lit up. Breaking news. Leaked audio reveals shocking confession from Ademoye Group executive Raymond Ademoye in connection with the deaths of Edward Ademoye, his wife and their child. "I killed Edward, his wife, their child. You think I won't kill you too?" Cameras turned toward Hannah. Sirens echoed across the night. And in that moment, the entire world began to hear the truth. By dawn, every major news station was broadcasting a single story. The truth about the Ademoye empire. It played on televisions in roadside shops, echoed from radio speakers in Danfo buses, and trended at #1 on every social media platform. The evidence was undeniable. Audio recordings, signed documents, banking trails, photos, the secret will, the DNA results. And the voice that shook the nation. "I killed Edward, his wife, their child. You think I won't kill you too?" At the High Court in Lagos, reporters swarmed outside the building as Raymond Ademoye was led in, handcuffed, flanked by armed guards. His designer suit couldn't cover the truth anymore. Inside, the courtroom buzzed. The board members of Ademoye Group sat in stunned silence. Shareholders looked pale, and in the front row sat Hannah, poised and silent, her mother beside her, wrapped in a pale wrapper and head tie. Mr. Ayodele leaned toward her. "Are you ready?" She nodded once. "Let them know." Maxwell Ademoye walked into the courtroom like a man reborn, still healing from his injuries, but tall and steady. The courtroom stood still. Cameras flashed. He stepped into the witness box. I am Maxwell Kingsley Ademoye, he said. I am the rightful chairman of Ademoye Group, and I'm here to tell the truth. The judge motioned for the evidence to be played. The screens lit up. First, the audio played.
Raymond's cold confession echoed across the room. Then the documents, proving the embezzlement, the bribes, the fake accident reports, the medical record of Maxwell's mental illness, evidence Raymond had instructed them tampered with his brake, even a recorded conversation from one of his men, and finally the tampered death certificate of a child supposedly lost in a fire. Maxwell turned to the room. The child didn't die. He lifted a file and held it up. Her name is Hannah. Her real name is Hannah Ademoye, my niece, the rightful daughter of Edward and Rose Ademoye, my brother's only child, and I have DNA results to prove it. Gasps filled the courtroom.
Hannah didn't flinch. The judge called for silence. Raymond tried to fight back. He stood smirking, waving his arms. This is all a setup. That girl? She's just a poor roadside food seller. It can't be true. You are lying. He turned to the board. You all know me. You know I kept this company alive. Why would I kill my own brother? Mr. Ayodele stepped forward. Because power was never enough for you. The prosecutor dropped one final folder on the table. Inside were old photographs, Raymond visiting the hospital morgue with a fake coroner's signature, witness statements, hidden account transfers, and at the very end, a photo of baby Hannah marked deceased. Maxwell whispered, "She lived, Raymond, and she came back for justice." The verdict was swift. The judge's voice echoed, "Raymond Ademoye, you are hereby sentenced to life imprisonment with hard labor, without the possibility of parole." Raymond's confident smile cracked. He stumbled. No, this isn't how it ends." But it had. The past had come back, and it had swallowed him whole. Outside the courthouse, the crowd cheered as Hannah stepped out into the daylight. News reporters surged toward her, but she held up her hand. "I didn't come here to be famous. I came here to honor my parents, and I've done that." She turned and saw Maxwell standing before her, tears in his eyes. He dropped to his knees. "I failed you," he whispered. "I should have protected you. I should have known. I let my fear cost you everything." Hannah's lips trembled. Linda gasped softly, placing a hand on her heart. Maxwell looked up at both women. "Please, forgive me." For a moment, no one moved. Then Hannah stepped forward and knelt too. She threw her arms around Maxwell and broke into tears. He held her tightly. And in the middle of the crowd, of the flashing cameras and the roaring headlines, a broken family began to heal. 3 months later, peace had settled like a soft blanket over the lives that once trembled. Maxwell kept his word. He flew Linda to one of the best private hospitals in South Africa, sparing no expense. Specialists treated her with care, dignity, and patience, and slowly, day by day, her strength returned. No more heavy breathing, no more hospital debt, no more fear. She smiled again, truly smiled, for the first time in years. Back in Lagos, Ademoye Group had changed hands. The boardroom no longer echoed with Raymond's threats or hidden schemes. The tension had dissolved into new beginnings. Hannah stood at the center of it all, not as a victim, but as the rightful owner. At a press briefing, Maxwell announced the final transfer. By birth, by blood, and by legacy, Hannah Ademoye is now the principal shareholder and legal owner of Ademoye Group. The applause was deafening. But when it was her turn to speak, Hannah simply said, "I'm grateful, but I won't be leading the company, not yet. There's still something I need to do." She turned to Maxwell. "Please, be the chairman, for now." He blinked, surprised. "Are you sure?" She smiled. "I want to go back to school. I want to become a nurse." 2 weeks later, she stood in front of a small gate with a backpack slung over her shoulder and hope in her eyes. Lagos School of Nursing. Hannah had been accepted into the program, not as a billionaire heiress, not as a survivor, but as a young woman who knew what pain felt like and wanted to ease it for others. Every day she walked the halls with purpose, making new friends, studying hard, and keeping her story quiet. She didn't want special treatment. At night, she would call Linda and laugh about small things. Home-cooked meals, new medicines, Linda's hilarious accent when learning to use her new phone. One quiet evening, just before lights out at the hostel, Hannah received a visitor. Maxwell. He brought no cameras, no guards, just a small leather-bound package wrapped in a ribbon. "I found this in one of Edward's old drawers," he said. "Your father. He used to write a lot." Hannah slowly untied the ribbon. It was a journal, aged but well kept. Inside were notes about the company, family memories, sketches of baby Hannah, and then, on the last page, her father's handwriting in faded blue ink, "Legacy is not in wealth, it's in the lives we lived." Hannah closed the book, her heart full. She sat under the soft light of her hostel window, her fingers running over the faded paper, and smiled to herself. Because she now understood. It all started with kindness. Her mother's kindness. Linda's sacrifice. Maxwell's redemption. And now, her own journey. The world would know her name, not because of her last name, but because of the people she helped. The evening was soft and quiet. The golden sun poured gently through the tall windows of the Adamoya mansion, warming the polished floors and casting a soft glow over the elegant furniture. Hannah stood on the balcony, arms crossed, watching the world below with a thoughtful look in her eyes. She had come so far. From a girl living in a one-room apartment with a sick mother, to the rightful heir of a legacy built not just on wealth, but on love, pain, and resilience. Maxwell joined her on the balcony, holding 2 glasses of freshly squeezed orange juice. "Something on your mind?" he asked, handing her one. Hannah took a sip, then turned to him. "I want to start a foundation," she said simply. Maxwell raised a brow. "Oh? For widows, for children on the street, for people like Mama Linda, when we had nothing." He nodded slowly, his eyes softening. "You're your father's daughter." Across town, something beautiful was blooming. Linda stood at the heart of it all, a big, bustling restaurant named Mama Linda's Table. She wore a bright apron, her cheeks fuller, her eyes alive with joy. She had healed completely, and now she wasn't just surviving. She was living. Serving food, spreading warmth, giving second chances to those the world had forgotten, just as she once was. Former street boys now work as waiters. Single mothers ran the kitchen. And every evening there was a table where anyone could walk in, sit down and eat, for free. Because kindness was the menu. 1 year later, Hannah stood before a modest but vibrant building painted in soft yellow and sky blue. The sign above read, "The Legacy House Foundation for Widows and Street Children." Inside, volunteers bustled about, organizing food, clothes, books, and toys. Outside, children played in the yard. Widows sat under mango trees, sewing, laughing, cooking. And at the center of it all was Hannah. Not with a crown, not in designer clothes, but in a simple white t-shirt and jeans, her natural hair tied into a neat puff, her arms carrying a bowl of hot food. She knelt before a thin, wide-eyed boy sitting alone near the gate. "Are you hungry?" she asked softly. The boy nodded. Hannah placed the food in his hands, her voice warm. "Eat, you're safe here." As he began to eat hungrily, she sat beside him, watching the other children laugh and chase bubbles in the wind. She smiled, because now she truly understood. Some miracles start with one plate of food. The camera would fade slowly, capturing the gentle joy around her. And in that moment, a voice spoke over the closing scene, gentle and wise. "Kindness never dies, it always finds its way back."